Hello and welcome to the Horror of It All movie podcast. I'm Eric.
I'm Adam.
This time we will be talking about Child's Play 3 because we've talked about 2 and 1. And anybody that has listened to right along, I assure you we are not going to be a Chucky podcast. This was just something for the fun of it. But Adam has been interested to kind of jump back into Child's Play because as a kid he remembers not liking it and he wanted to see like as an adult what he thought. And then if anybody heard or didn't hear previous episodes, he figured out that he didn't actually see Child's Play. He saw Child's Play 2, and you have that because when you're younger sometimes you have those memories in your head and they happen to be wrong, but you were close.
Yeah.
So what were your thoughts now that it's fresh in your head before we kind of dive into the movie and facts and stuff? And just I'm kind of loose on this one, so we'll just have fun with it.
Yeah. Overall, I definitely liked it.
Awesome. That's good to hear.
Yeah. I have not been disappointed with these yet.
Cool. Yeah, because out of the main three, like the first three, this is consistently I've heard people's like either least favorite or they just don't like it. I've never understood that, but it's also I think partially with me kind of like with 2, where it might be a bit of a nostalgic thing because I grew up with him and I loved him as a kid, so I wouldn't necessarily pick up on things even as an adult, if that makes sense, because I have it in my head like that from a kid, as opposed to something you discover as an adult and you don't have that same kind of feeling like of nostalgia or remembrance. But that's kind of where I was at. It's always been one of my favorites for a long time. It was actually my favorite. Dylan didn't necessarily, my brother Dylan, in case anybody's new listening, I mentioned him before. He has a podcast too called The Horror Inside, also on YouTube. You should check it out. But anyway, this was definitely one of his more least favorites, and not in like a picking way or anything, because that's not him, but he never understood why I liked it so much. But hey, I really like it, and I watched it again last night. I probably watched it maybe 6 or 8 months ago before last night, and I still love it the same. So I still had fun with it.
Nice.
So I can definitely say, as I'm going to with every episode now, as I kind of narrow it down to the exact words I want to say, so to speak. As with all of our episodes, there will be spoilers in this episode, so we highly recommend that you watch the movie before listening, or have already watched it in the past. You've been warned, as I said before. So, I mean, we're still like kind of a baby podcast. We don't have too many subscribers, but hopefully, I'm sure as time goes on, it's something that just takes a while. You know, I'm not in too big of a hurry. I'm just having fun watching movies and talking to you. So whatever happens, kind of thing.
Yeah.
On the poster, I always liked the thing that said, "There comes a time to put away childish things, but some things won't stay put." And that's a kind of a good way to describe it, because Andy on this one is now an adult. I'll get into the actual time frame that was between the two, because it wasn't very long at all. But they, as Don Mancini said, he was like, well, what am I going to do for a third one? Because they wanted to make a third one. I've kind of hit a wall, like, so to speak. But now Andy's 16 years old, and I believe it was 16, because the only time you really find out is on the computer screen, but we'll get into that. And that might throw people off. Maybe they wanted more Andy, like as a boy, but I mean, you only can really do that so much, because essentially, in a way, the first two are very similar, and it kind of has the same formula and like to the movie in a way. You know, it's not the same movie, but I guess, do you get what I mean?
Yeah.
And I wanted to say this. This isn't necessarily a fact. This is just something I've actually been thinking about recently. That I mentioned it because we had talked about it, and I referred to it as kind of like a trilogy. Like I might have mentioned, I think I mentioned that once to you, like
Yeah.
kind of sort of like a trilogy, like the Andy Barclay trilogy. Bartley trilogy. You know what? I guess that's the best way to say it because after this, they kind of go on and do their own thing. And yes, Andy comes back later. I'm not saying where exactly, but these are definitely the majority of it. He's still the main character and things like that, but
Mhm.
it reminded me kind of Friday the 13th, where there's on 4, 5, and 6 the main guy other than Jason, of course, is Tommy Jarvis, and some people call that like the Tommy Jarvis trilogy. So it was kind of a similar thing. It's not really a fact or anything, just a thought, but I thought that was kind of interesting because this is basically the Andy Barclay trilogy. So,
Mhm.
um, let's see. Um, one of the more, I guess, crazier facts that I'll dive into more after the movie, but I wanted to mention it a bit at the beginning, that the film was banned in the UK, kind of like the video nasties, as I've talked about, all the way up until 2002, apparently. Um, and it was incorrectly believed to have contributed to the real life murder of of a little boy. I'm not sure. I can't remember what age it was, but
2
in
years old.
1990. Oh, Jesus Christ! It was worse than I thought.
Yeah.
But yeah, two 11-year-old boys. They took him to like a railroad line or whatever, and killed him, and that's just crazy.
Yeah.
Um, and it was alleged that the boys watched the movie and like reenacted violence or whatever, but then it's later on figured out that they never saw the movie, so it was basically just the UK being the UK and always blaming movies for everything.
Yeah. It's like us blaming video games.
Yeah, pretty much, yeah. But you knew some of that, so hopefully I didn't. Hopefully I don't take too many of your notes.
No,
But
I try not to read too many.
okay, because you know I just blabber on and on. um, some described the process of Child's Play 3 as breakneck, meaning Universal wanted a sequel right away. So in less than 9 months, David and Don, who worked on the Child's Play 2 together, Don Mancini's worked on all of them, as I've talked on the past podcasts, to basically come up with an idea, write a script, shoot the thing, edit it, and release it all in 9 months. I was like, Jesus Christ! So no matter, he might have come up with more. Maybe that's what some people see about it. Like they feel like something's missing because it was so rushed. I don't know, but
Mm.
it could be just a theory, I guess, or like a. But yeah, um, I guess I don't have too much. It was definitely. Oh, and when that did happen, I believe, if I read it right, that it was even before the second one was released. Like, yeah, I mean, before, and they already were like, we know it's going to be huge. Like, do a second one, do a third one, or whatever. Um, the what's another like a bit of, it's not really an obscure fact because if you watch the movie, you can kind of tell. But it was the first movie in the series that Chucky uses a gun as a weapon. I found that interesting because I never thought about it.
Yeah.
Um,
Right on.
Also, it's the only Child's Play film where no females die. All the victims are male.
Huh.
Yeah, even after watching it, you're like, wow, really? Yeah, I guess so. And the last thing I'll say on little tidbits is this is the last movie called Child's Play as part of the title, and the rest of them are Chucky. Other than, as I keep referring to, that thing. So if people have been listening, they know what I'm talking about because the first thing people think about is, oh, don't you mean the remake? No, I'm not talking about that. We're not talking about that. So yeah, I guess we can kind of go into the movie. I might jump around a bit or think of random shit. I'm kind of still spitballing because I'm still like learning on how I want to exactly do things, but we'll kind of just wing it like we usually do.
Yeah.
So is there anything you wanted to mention before we got into the movie?
No, nothing yet.
All right. So Child's Play 3 opens up basically where 2 left off, although this is about, I don't know if they ever say, but with Andy's age, I would guess 8 years, 9 years, something like that. Because if he's 16 and he was 6 in the first one, and the second one was so close after, I'm guessing he was 7 in the second one. I'm not sure if they said, but we'll say that. We'll say around 8 years. And it opens with the toy factory, except now the toy factory's been abandoned and there's like cobwebs everywhere. And Chucky is still melted to the floor, and a giant crane, like with a hook on it, comes down and puts it in to pick up the remnants of what's left of Chucky. And blood comes out of what's left of the doll. And I love the scene where because the opening credits of this are kind of weird.
Yeah.
But I love this scene where it kind of goes over that vat at the end of 2 that basically melted him anyway, but obviously it's cool now. But drops of his blood are dripping into it, and then it kind of does this like weird boiling effect, and then it's a whirlpool, and then it's the credits, and then you're like, what the fuck is going on? Because it's like Chucky's being created again, like somehow. Like, I'm not exactly sure how to explain that part without somebody seeing it.
Yeah.
But yeah, he's just forming, and then as he forms, his head forms and his arm forms, and when they're done with the credits, you just see Chucky's face without like eyes or anything, but he just yells no, like fuck, I'm in this doll again or whatever. So that's always been a little different to me. Like I never quite understood that opening sequence, but sure, whatever. Like Don Mancini said, he didn't know where the fuck he was going with this. He was kind of just winging it, and he was under the gun and with time, so whatever worked.
Oh man.
And then from there, the movie starts where they're explaining the story, and it's which I'm still unclear. Which I still didn't look it up stupidly, but I'm still unclear exactly what that guy's job is. Like, is he the president? Is he the owner of the toy factory? I don't know, something like that. He owns the company. Basically, that's what I'm guessing. But they're explaining, because it's years later, because they're thinking about getting the company. What is it, Play Pals? I think. Yeah, getting the company going again, and they're just basically reviewing Andy's backstory again. That this kid had this problem with one of their dolls, and it was possessed by the soul of Charles Lee Ray or whatever, and of course they just say like that was a kid's delusion, and one of these people, the main guy, as I said from the second one, the owner of Play Pals, I believe, like I said, I believe that's what he does. I keep thinking in my head I should really should look that up, but anyway,
well,
one of his oh okay, you go ahead.
I just had to look it up too because I wasn't positive. He is the
Right.
CEO of the toy company.
Okay, so he's something that I didn't say. So okay, that's one thing I didn't think of. Okay, so that makes sense. He's up there anyway.
Yeah.
He's like the main guy. One of the employees gives him. Thank you for looking that up, by the way. Because I was sick of like rambling and all over my words. One of his employees give him the first good guy doll off the line. Of course, this new good guy doll is Chucky, which he finds out later because then Mr. Sullivan's he goes to. I'm guessing that's his apartment. At first, as a kid, I was like, maybe that's his office, but I think that's where he lives. I don't know.
I thought it was his office, and like
maybe
it's bigger than my apartment, but
true.
But like all the toys and everything all over the place, it looked like that's where he does all his business.
That would make sense. We'll go with that. We'll say it's his office. and he goes to get a drink, and the camera slowly focuses on the good guy box, which he had put on the couch. And of course, now the box is empty. And when now you start seeing that first person, as I mentioned in the other ones, that little famous first person is Chucky's about to do some bad or whatever. Um, and then Mr. Sullivan goes to watch TV, and you see a golf club like move behind him, but I don't know if he saw it move because he just kind of picks it up like, oh, okay, I'll do that. Um, so he takes it and plays a little golf, and then you see a little quick thing behind him, and it's Chucky running, and then you see Chucky's hands grab for a jar of marbles. I always liked this scene as a kid. I don't know what it is about it. I always just thought it was cool. He grabs a jar of marbles because it's so simple and like almost like childlike in a way. Not the murdering, but
Yeah.
but he dumps the marbles down, and Mr. Sullivan there he ends up falling, and well, before this the TV ends up going on, and he can't figure why, and then he can't find the remote, so he's looking under the couch, so Chucky discreetly puts the remote, and he gets the remote so he can turn it back off. And then basically from there, once he gets up, he slips on the marbles and he slams onto his back, and then a police car toy heads for his head, and other toys start moving like robots, and the train starts going, and all this distraction. And then I always I was geeked out even as a kid in this story with this part. And then there's two good guy dolls sitting in like office chairs, and they start talking to each other. Hi, my name is Larry. Hi, my name is Polly. Hey, want to play? Hey, want to play? I like to be hugged. And then it keeps going a little bit until Sullivan touches them, and it touches one of them, and they stop talking. And then once he does that, he just turns around and gets railed in the side of the head with the golf club by. And then Chucky says one of my favorite lines he's ever said in any of the movies. I don't know why it's so simple, but it's always in my head regardless. It's don't fuck with the Chuck. I always love that stupid line, but I guess it's Brad Dourif's delivery. I don't know.
Yeah.
Chucky then proceeds to throw darts. I thought this was because always when there's a kill that you can kind of have an idea of what it feels like, it's almost a little bit more effective, if that makes sense, because like the darts are going into him, and you're like, like one of them almost looks like it could have went into one of his kidneys.
Yeah.
And as he's throwing those, he goes to go for the phone, and just as he goes for the phone, Chucky throws another dart, and it goes in his hand, and then he comes up from behind him and chokes him with a yo-yo. But I think that isn't that reminiscent? Hasn't he done that before, or am I thinking of something else? Maybe when he came on the second one and came and suffocated the guy with the bag. Maybe that's what I'm thinking of. Maybe he didn't kill anybody with a yo-yo, but for some reason when I saw it again, I was thinking like, did he do that? Maybe I'm thinking of another movie.
Well, in the first one, he did the jumper cables when he tried to kill the cop.
Okay, maybe that's what I'm thinking of. Yeah,
Just like
okay.
He likes to choke people. Oh, well, he's a strangler.
That's true. And that leads into the next great line. Nothing like the old days. Like nothing. What does it say? Like a little strangulation to get the circulation going.
I like that one a lot.
Yeah, me too. Yeah, me too. Chucky then uses the computer to find Andy, but I think at this point, because why would Chucky know how long it's been? Like, this is just me in my head. Like, they don't explain this on the movie, but this is kind of how I feel. Like, he sees it, and he sees, like, Andy's 16. That's when we first find out that, okay, maybe, like, they kind of talk about it in the office, but this is when, at least I remember, maybe not, but I feel like when I first watched it, that's when you really notice, if you see on the computer screen how old he is, how much time has passed. And that he goes to military academy, Kent, and just as that, there's like a dissolve, and it goes to the next scene, and you see Andy arriving at the at Kent, and he's about to be interviewed, and it's basically, obviously he has a lot in his past, so they're asking him a lot of those things, and why he never got settled. And then the colonel sees a clipping of Chucky, it's kind of briefly, but he doesn't really talk about it seems, but he does a little bit, I guess. He just says, and then Andy's reason for never getting settled is he just basically never felt comfortable um, with any family. And then the colonel just says, it's time to grow up. It's time to grow up, and you're not a kid anymore. It's time to forget these about killer dolls. When I was a child, I thought as a child, but when as a man, I put away childish things. And total like military dude, like
Yeah.
feel like at Kent we take bedwetters and turn them into men. I'm like, oh Jesus. From there it goes to the military academy barber. This guy's just a psycho himself.
Yeah.
I always thought that. It definitely seems a bit off kilter, so to speak. And his line where he's always, whenever he's done, he's like, "Presto, you're bald," which is kind of foreshadowing because there's a great Chucky line later on coming up that I think is better than the "Presto, you're bald," but it's a play on it.
Well, it bothered me that he's a barber, but he tells every kid they're bald. Like, I'm bald. I have no hair.
Oh, right. Like, I get what you're saying.
Like, they still have full head of hair. I was like, oh, come on.
Speaking of the hair thing, it's something that I didn't mention as I was thinking about stuff or whatever, where they only do that to the men because later on in the movie, in a little bit, you meet the De Silva, and when they're in the lunchroom later on, when I'll get into that, but when he's going around like, you need to come this day, you need to come this way, and she's such a bitch, but she's such like a cool bitch.
Yeah.
And she's just in her hair, and she's just looking at her like, I'm gonna fucking punch you, baby. You know?
Yeah.
I can't do anything about you.
I got a kick out of that one.
Yeah, definitely. But yeah, anyway, Andy, why don't they have longer hair so that I like that line when Andy, why don't they have longer hair? And he's like, so the enemy can't grab them and grab their hair and slit their throat. That just added to his psychoticness. I mean, granted, it is the military, so there is war, so I got that part too, but still. Anyway, and then Andy gets in the chair and he gets his hair cut, and a Good Guy Doll commercial comes on, and Andy starts to feel funny, almost like flashbacks. Not that they show flashbacks, but there's the echo, which again, because I've probably watched this one the most, I have a feeling I really have, because don't fuck with the Chuck and the whole like echoing at that point. Good God. Like I'm there's always such random shit in my head for movies, and that's one of the things. I don't know why. But from here, almost reminiscent of the first movie, Tyler is sitting down, and he's the little boy that goes to Ken, and he almost has the same reaction as Andy did on the first one when he saw the commercial, and he's like, "Wow." And then Andy goes to his room, puts the suitcase on his bed, and he hears some banging in the closet. One of the other teenagers that goes there falls out of the closet and says, "Bastards, fucking bastards, Shelton and his goddamn lackeys." Andy helps him up, and when he fell out of the closet, he says, "You must be new, otherwise you wouldn't be." What does he say? They don't tolerate any form of individuality here, and introduce himself as Whitehurst. And then he says Harold Aubrey, I think, for the record, or something like that. But then that's when he introduced the Whitehurst character. Whitehurst he also explains who Shelton is. He's a lieutenant, or not a lieutenant. What is he? Why do I keep? I always mess up titles. He's colonel. He's a colonel as well, I think. Lieutenant.
Lieutenant Colonel.
Go ahead.
I think.
Lieutenant. All right, Lieutenant Colonel Shelton. That's right. That's right. Okay. All right, I'm back on the same page. And he's God around here, so to speak, and don't expect any mercy from him. Welcome to hell, Barclay. And then the next scene, it goes outside, and they're all standing military style, and Shelton proceeds to check out for over the course, and stops at Andy. He's like looking at everybody, and then he stops at Andy and says, "Oh, you must be the new boy, huh?" and ask him how he is, and he says, pretty good, and then he gets all strict and military with him, and do you know who I am? I'm Lieutenant Colonel Shelton, asshole. And of course he gives him a hard time and asks him who he is, and he keeps making him like yell sir, and like it's probably just a typical military thing, but I would not do good in these if I ever had to go those places growing up.
Yeah.
I am terrible with authority. No, I don't get in trouble. No, I do like respect people. Like if you get stopped by police, obviously. But if they're just fucking with me for the sake of fucking with me, I don't deal with that well.
Yeah, same.
Yeah. And then from there, the De Silva, he overhears him call him an asshole, and he makes her do 25 push-ups. Like certain people, like White, I notice it's specific people too. It's almost like he's a bully. Like it's the specific people like Andy or Whitehurst or De Silva. Like he picks out the certain like quote unquote weaker ones, obviously. And that's all I got from his character. He's a fucking bully.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. And then we see Tyler. He goes to check the mail for his dad, and it's a very little scene, but I always kind of felt bad for him because he's always checking for the mail to see if his dad sent him anything or a letter, and of course he didn't. And he does get a package given to him that he's supposed to give to Barclay, but by the shape of the box, just like in the first one, at least Andy thought he was getting a good guy doll, but Tyler knew pretty sure what was in that box, and he accidentally drops it, and then he's absolutely sure because he sees like the good guy logo. So Tyler opens it, and he gets all excited for a second until Chucky bursts out of the front of the box and scares the shit out of him and says, "Who the fuck are you?" Tyler asks, "I thought you guys were only supposed to say 3 sentences." And Chucky says, "You and improved." And he's like, "Where's Andy? This package was supposed to go with Andy." And I thought it was kind of funny hearing Chucky being like moral for a second, like,
yeah,
tampering with a mail is a felony offense or federal offense. I thought that was funny. But yeah, he starts thinking like, wow, Tyler, he could have a new lease on life because he realizes he hasn't told anybody his little secret. So he asks Tyler his name, and then Chucky proceeds to tell him that he's Charles Lee Ray, which in a way, that's what he has to do, but was kind of a mistake because as the movie goes on, he's really annoyed because he calls him fucking Charles. For some reason, he called Charles. And then this goes to the shooting range, and we learn that De Silva helps him after Whitehurst introduces them because De Silva is like she's a great shot basically, and she tries to help Andy, but it doesn't seem to really work. She does instill something in him that helps him later on, but he's not really that great of a shot. Mm-hmm. And right before that, I did skip over one thing that Tyler did get caught by the main colonel, and he took the doll away, and he was going to throw him away. And then they're all outside doing kind of drills, and Andy, of course, steps out of line, and he gets in trouble, so they put him in front. And Andy sees him walking with the doll and gets completely distracted and drops his gun. And this gets him in more trouble. So, then from there, I think he does he get to throw him away? I think it is. Does it get to? Yeah, because the truck, what am I trying to say? The garbage truck.
Garbage truck.
I hate when I do that. I forget. Yeah. But yeah. And then the Colonel throws Chucky in the dumpster, and the garbage man right then picks up the dumpster, dumps it in there, but he starts to hear screaming. So he goes in the truck and tries to look, but of course Chucky tricks him and gets out of the truck. And as the garbage man proceeds to look, Chucky activates the truck, and it starts to close, and it ends up basically squishing the guy he does stop it a little bit because his arm is out, but the last thing you hear is like a scream, and then all of them that were doing drills run over to see what happened. Um, uh, and when they do that, they just see blood running down the truck. One thing I did want to mention at this point that I think was right there too was how Andy was handling his gun. This stupid line. This is my rifle. This is my gun. This is for shooting. This is for fun. As he like grabs his dick. I'm like, Jesus.
Well, that's straight out of Full Metal Jacket.
I know.
Yeah. Well, it just that actually kind of bothered me. I was like, come on.
That's what I'm saying. Like, oh, come on.
Yeah.
Yeah. And from there, now they're back to the bedrooms, and Andy asks Whitehurst if he saw the Colonel with the doll earlier, the good guy doll, that is, obviously. And then he says, "Oh yeah, I remember those." And Andy says, "Yeah, me too." Like, obviously, Andy remembers him a lot more well than he does, so to speak. But I don't think he really answers him. He really just like thought he was asking him if he knew what they were, it seemed. And then Andy asked if he received a package, and he says he hasn't. And at that point, you see Chucky go into a trunk, but it must have been only for a second, because then you see Andy go into that trunk, and Chucky's not in the trunk. And you see Chucky grab Andy's little knife, and he goes under his bed. It tries to cut his leg, or it lines up with like an Achilles tendon type thing, but he didn't seem to hurt him well, but that's what he was trying for. But Chucky jumps out and he's like, "Long time no see, pal." And Andy says, "You're dead. No, we killed you. You know what they say, you just can't keep a good guy down." Bit of play on words, but yet at the same time appropriate. But then Chucky sees a Playpen magazine and says, "Oh, Chucky, Andy, how you've grown." Andy, of course, is convinced that you're not going to kill me. You need me. And Chucky says basically like, "Nope, I got some new fresh meat lined up, and I'm not going to let you ruin it for me." And Andy knows right off that he means Tyler. Chucky says, "Yeah, just think, Chucky's gonna be a bro." And I wanted to stop there because in some cuts of the movie, like on TV and stuff, they cut the line out because they were just convinced that people were gonna get offended because it was like racist or something.
Oh.
I don't know if you felt that way. I never felt that way.
There's a part of me that was like, "Oh, really?" And then the other part was like, "Yeah, it's fine." That's Chucky. Who he is, yeah.
And then he tries to stop him by throwing a shoe at him and starts beating him at the floor. And at this point, Chucky turns back into the doll, and he's caught by Colonel Shelton coming through the door, and he's all jokes about it, like, "What are you doing? You miss your mommy or whatever?" Until he sees the shoe that he threw, and it's all scoffed up because Whitehurst is like his slave basically, and he was shining his shoes. So now he basically says like, Whitehurst got off the hook. Now you're my slave or whatever. And then he takes the doll and says, "That'd be perfect for my sister's birthday." And then from there proceeds to go to Colonel Shelton's room. Andy does, to find the doll. And Andy tries quietly looking in the closet and under the bed, and then he sees his knife, his knives. There's a giant knife missing, and Chucky scares him, and as that happens, he accidentally falls on the bed, and Andy gets in trouble from there. Well, everybody does, and Chucky escapes again. And it's kind of funny because as I'm playing the movie, I'm almost close to that because I started it a little early. To this. Let's see, where am I? And then from there, of course, they're all pissed at Andy because they ended up having to go outside and like do drills in the middle of the night in the rain and stuff. So one of them pushes Andy and he falls on the ground. Then this goes back to Chucky trying to find Tyler, and he goes in his room, and Tyler just left him a note. "You're it. Come and find me." your best friend, Tyler. And Chucky just says, shit. Can you see? And then you see Chucky creeping around trying to find Tyler, but Tyler just thinks he's playing with him, and they're playing a game. Um, Andy then asks, switches to outside, asks Whitehurst where the kids sleep because he knows Chucky is after Tyler. And then he breaks off from the group to try to find Tyler, but of course gets caught by Colonel Shelton, who punches him in the stomach, and Andy punches him in the face. So he gets in way more trouble there. Although it seemed almost like Colonel Shelton liked it a little bit, like, oh, you know, you're in so much shit now.
Yeah.
Was there at this point? I'll stop if there's anything you wanted to add or say or anything. Or I guess I'm doing okay.
No, yeah, you're doing great. I have nothing so far.
And then we see Tyler running from Chucky because, of course, he just thinks it's a game of hide and seek, and he goes into the main colonel's office. And Chucky walks in seconds later, saying, "Tyler, come out, wherever you are." And what does he say to him? Get out here, you little son of a bitch! And then he goes to the closet where he's hiding and finds him. And he then tries to tell Whitehurst that the doll is alive, but of course, nobody ever believes Andy. So, and then you see De Silva and another girl sneaking around, and they end up also in the colonel's office. De Silva just wants to see Andy's file, and she's just about to see like a news clipping and get more information when she hears Tyler in the closet with Chucky, and then they open the door and they chuckle, and De Silva then puts Andy's file back, but the girl that's with De Silva, which I never really caught her name,
Yeah.
starts playing with Chucky, like, oh, he's a doll, and then Tyler asks him, like, asks his name. I'm Chucky, and I'm your friend to the end. Tyler says his real name is Charles Lee Ray, and the girl proceeds to put lipstick on the doll, and of course Tyler says, "You're making him look like a wuss." And then we just hear a noise, and they leave Chucky on the colonel's desk, and the colonel comes in, and Chucky's not on the desk when he gets there, but he sees him on the floor. So the colonel puts him in, basically throws him away. And as soon as he throws him away, the basket tips over, and he sees that, so he's getting a little concerned. And then Chucky bursts out with the giant knife that was missing from what the fuck is his name again? What's the other colonel's name again?
Shelton.
Yeah, Shelton's knife that he stole from him, and he goes, as soon as he gets up, he basically just scared him to death because he proceeds to have a heart attack, and Chucky just says, "You gotta be fucking kidding me."
I did not see that one coming.
Oh, him having a heart attack? Yeah, me
Yeah.
neither. I don't think I did either when I first saw it. Yeah. And then Andy sees what happens when they're pulling him out after the colonel had a heart attack, and of course, you figure that he thinks, like, yeah, he might have had a heart attack, but Chucky had something to do with it. And then I was talking about this a bit before. It goes to lunchtime the next day, where the sadistic barber is that's a completely different character, not in the movie, but barber is going around to everybody, telling him there's certain days because their hair's too long. Andy then gets up and goes over, and even though he's told, like, you're not supposed to get up during mess hall or something, I don't know what they call it.
During mess.
Yeah, and then gets up to go over to talk to Tyler. To try to convince him that Chucky is bad. But of course Tyler doesn't listen. He's just like, he's my best friend. But he still gives him a knife just in case, his little knife, for protection. From here, then Whitehurst is then getting his hair cut, and he gets up and leaves, and as the bartender is why do I keep calling him a bartender? Barber! Jesus Christ, you stupid brain. The barber is sweeping up, and he happens to go in the cabinet, and he finds the doll. He's startled at first, and then oddly he has this obsession with hair, starts like He's like, that haircut isn't regulation. So he goes to give Chucky a haircut. But as he's slowly bringing the buzzers to him, Chucky discreetly reaches to the side of the chair where there's a straight razor and slits his throat. And this is the line I was talking about. Presto, you dead. It definitely suits you, or it's definitely you. um, at that moment, Whitehurst goes back because he forgot something and sees Chucky and scares him, and he runs outside. It basically is white as a ghost, and Andy sees him, and he seems to know, of course, what happened. And the main colonel that just died, they're still going to do, because even though the main colonel just died, they're still going to do their war games with the red team and the blue team. And as this is happening and they're talking, Chucky switches the red team's paintball guns to real bullets. And then, of course, Andy talks to Whitehurst and tries to ask him what happened, and Whitehurst is just very dismissive and says nothing happened. And then the red team and blue team, they start walking and they go their separate ways. And from there, not much happens. It's pretty much just random talking, and then it's nighttime, and you find out that De Silva's real name is Kristen. She's right before that, she's telling like a scary campfire story, and kind of goes in the woods next to him and talks to Andy, and they go over and they see a carnival in the distance, and Andy basically says he's forgotten what normalcy is, like for the most part. And then from there, Andy ends up stealing the map to try to go after Tyler to save him. And of course, they just end up thinking that, oh, he's I'm like, I know it's military and everything, but I see that, I'm like, God, you guys take this shit way too serious. But he's good in cahoots with the Reds or whatever. But before he can get there, Tyler goes off with Chucky, and of course Chucky wants to play hide the soul, but Tyler says, I don't want to play that game. And I don't want to play that game anymore. Chucky says, you're a fucking drag, you know that? And Tyler says, watch your mouth, Charles. And that's when Chucky finally had enough of it. Stop calling me that. He pulls out the giant knife, and Tyler says, Barclay was right. You aren't a good guy. As this is happening, Tyler takes the little knife and that Andy gave him and stabs Chucky in the chest. And of course, blood comes out because he knows, like, oh, it's human time basically, and he's got to get this done. Tyler runs off to find Andy, and he finds Andy and his group and everything. Andy gets before that, Andy gets shit from his group for being a traitor, and he tries to get Whitehurst to back him up, but of course Whitehurst doesn't. And then he tries to get De Silva over the walkie-talkie, but this doesn't happen. Chucky ends up kidnapping De Silva, and by jumping on her and holding her at knife point. Chucky calls the blue team and says it says he wants the kid, and they can basically exchange for De Silva, and if you don't do that, I'll waste her. Chucky then calls the red team, so they're kind of in cahoots. Chucky has this all figured out, and he ends up they do end up trading off for Tyler, and Tyler goes off to Chucky, and he wasn't going to let him, but Chucky has a grenade, and Tyler goes over, the Silver goes over to Andy, and as this is happening, the blue team gets in position and starts shooting their paintballs towards the old Jeep that Chucky's by. And as this happens, they see Chucky is alive, and Colonel Shelton sees him and is stunned and distracted. And as this happens, one of the red teams shoots off his gun, and as I said, they're actual bullets, and it hits him. It hits Shelton in the chest, and he seems to be dead on impact. Now, one thing I'm curious about this part that I never really asked anybody, but I wanted to see what you thought. They kept the red team kept fucking shooting. paintballs and bullets sound the same? I don't know this, so I don't. You would think they'd figure that out.
It's a mixture of the two. Like they would not sound the same at all. It wouldn't use nearly as much gunpowder, but
Yeah.
it was a really smart idea for him to give it to the red team because if they do shoot anybody, the blood could look like paint, and they'd be like, ah, he's fine.
Touche, my friend. Good
Now,
idea.
so even if it did sound like a real gun, they could just be like, oh, that's just how the paintball is.
Okay. Yeah. All right.
Yeah,
So.
yeah. So I gave him credit for that one.
Okay. So sound, no, but once they
Mhm.
hit it, okay, maybe not. Okay. Um, and for whatever reason, this doesn't stop, as I said, and they continue to shoot the real bullets.
Mm.
And because of this, Chucky's distracted, and he's getting all excited about it, like yeah. But as this is happening, Tyler escapes from Chucky. They all go over to Colonel Shelton, and they one of the other guys, I'm not sure, I never remember his name either, gets angry at Andy, thinking Andy had something to do with it. Of course he did. He's the trouble kid or whatever. Why this happened. But as they're all getting distracted and there's a scuffle and they're all attending to him, Chucky throws the grenade. And the only one that sees it is Whitehurst, and it's almost like he's redeeming himself because he's always been like that timid guy, like nope, I'm not saying anything, I'm not doing anything, I'm not helping. But that's kind of how I took it.
Yeah.
But unfortunately, he jumps on the grenade and sacrifices himself and blows up. Tyler then finds himself at the carnival that I was just talking about a second ago, and he goes to a security tent to try to help him, and he tries to explain to him that his friend, he's trying to kill him, and as he tries to calm him down, in doing so, he takes out like a doll that he found, and of course it's Chucky. Andy and Kristen almost simultaneously, in a way, end up at the carnival and run to the security. Well, maybe it wasn't simultaneously. There's a little bit of time there because they also went to the security and they saw the security guard dead, and he was the only one in there. Excuse me. Kristen and De Silva have been known for most of the movie and take the security guards. No, what am I saying? Oh, Kristen or De Silva. She has been known because of the whole scene with the shooting range that she's good. So she takes his gun, the security guard's gun, because he's dead. And Tyler's in the carnival and he tries to pull the knife on Chucky, but Chucky has a gun. Chucky lures him into the funhouse, and Andy and De Silva also follow into the funhouse because he sees him going in there. And Tyler gets scared about all the different attractions, and he's trying to run away from Chucky at the same time. But Chucky does find him. But at the same time, Andy finds him as well, and he starts shooting, and he ends up shooting De Silva in the leg. She tries to shoot Chucky but misses. De Silva gives Andy the gun, and at this point, you're like, "Oh, great," because you know he can't really shoot, but he'll try to go after Chucky. Tyler's still running away from Chucky, and he's trying to maneuver through the attractions in the funhouse, and it ends up getting his leg stuck. And right before that, you see a giant death-like attraction with and his scythe just keeps swinging, and he's like, yeah, and this ends up cutting off half of Chucky's face. I always thought that effect was really cool.
Yeah.
Chucky just doesn't seem like he's the doll, yes, but obviously he's human underneath. So it seemed like you would like if you cut somebody's face in half, that's what it would look like.
Yeah. Yeah, that one was really cool. I was into that.
And then Chucky tries to get Tyler, but he ends up getting on one of the attractions. He ends up getting hooked to a cable for Chucky, but Chucky's at the bottom and he's holding on. I was like a little kid. I was like, Chucky's his little legs are wiggling when he's going. And then there's this like long mountain of skulls basically, and Tyler gets off and Chucky gets off almost at this right after because he was on the bottom, but he doesn't realize that Tyler ends up getting knocked out because doesn't he he gets hit by the thing, the the thing that he was on.
Like dragon pterodactyl looking thing.
Tyler ends up getting knocked out. And Andy sees that there's a giant fan, and while trying to avoid this, basically, there's this roller coaster car thing. So Andy's trying to get to them and trying to get to them. And as this is happening, Chucky proceeds to play, as he calls it. It's really a ritual. Hide the soul. So he does his Ate Due Dembella. Give me the power, I beg of you. And the sky's open again and everything. And as this is happening, Andy continues to try to get up the Mountain of Skulls to save Tyler. And the clouds are just getting bigger and bigger, and like lightning starts up. Because Chucky is still doing his ritual. But as he's doing it, Andy tries to shoot, and of course misses at first, but he remembers what she said. So he tries his hardest to get him, and he finally does, and he shoots off Chucky's arm. I thought that was a cool, another cool effect. But Chucky still continues to do the ritual. Chucky shoots again. Andy shoots again. And he shoots him in the chest and kind of knocks him backwards. Andy ends up getting up to save Tyler. And Chucky is still holding on to something and jumps onto Andy. And as he's holding on to Tyler so he doesn't fall in, Tyler gives him his knife. And he's holding on to Tyler. It's almost like one of those things like if he was on a mountain and he's trying his hardest because he's trying to fight off Chucky and he's trying to hold Tyler so he doesn't fall. And at this point, he, like I said, Tyler gives him Andy's knife. It gives Andy his knife back. And he cuts off Chucky's hand. Boy, Chucky really had quite the fucking he did in the second one too, but this one's all like missing arm, cut off face, cut off his arm. Jesus. And then as he cuts off his hand, he seems like he's unable to hold on, and he's able to hold on just slightly, but Andy just enough, kind of flings him off his back. And I always like this scene too. And Chucky ends up falling into the giant fan, and now he's just in pieces, and they're just flying everywhere.
Yeah.
And that's basically the end. That's Child's Play 3. I mean, all the else that really happens is Andy reunites with De Silva, so De Silva's okay. And De Silva asks if Andy will be okay, and he's like, yeah, I'll be okay. I've been here before. And like I said, that's the end of Child's Play 3, or the end of the Andy Barclay trilogy, as I like to call it. All right, so now that I've rambled on about the movie, what would you give it on our star level, you think? Even if if you're comparing them to the other ones, or just on it solely a movie, whichever.
I would say, comparing and just in general, I'd give it a solid 3.
Okay.
I'd say it's on par with number 2 for me.
Okay. Yeah, I get that. I like it as much as 2. I kind of flip-flop back and forth which one I like better, so I definitely like them a lot.
Yeah.
I've also flip-flopped with my stars, because for the longest time, as I said, it was my favorite, so I always seem to give it 5. So I'm kind of back and forth between 4 and 5. So I'll say 4.5, just to make it easier. That's what I'll say for me.
Yeah.
So we're to the end of the movie. I'm gonna say a few more facts and things like that, and then we'll call it a podcast again. So if you wanna start, or I can just dive in and then you can say something, whichever, because I don't want to say anything you have, or if you have too much or whatever. But
yeah, I guess I'll start with an opinion. The one thing in the very end I liked a lot was when Chucky was falling off the mountain and his little legs were flying. It looked like such a human thing. I was that was really cool. They did that really well.
Definitely.
Yeah, but it threw me off. As soon as he started getting chopped up by the fan, bits and pieces of him started exploding. I guess he's kind of robotic too, but it's still there's a moment of what's happening.
Well, I always took that as he wasn't completely human yet, I guess.
Yeah.
And then, like you said, there was still parts of the toy in there.
Okay.
That's kind of how I chalk it up to.
Yeah, that's kind of what I was assuming. But at the same time, I was maybe it's just a cheap effect they were going for.
maybe. Um, and it was a lot. Some of the same people that did the effects on this one. This was the first one to, I believe, have like it was a little bit easier because they were able to use um, a computer to control him sometimes. Now, and I'm not saying CG. I'm saying to
Mhm.
control him, as opposed to like more puppetry and things like that.
Yeah,
Because
and actually
at this,
having like a handheld controller on them.
yeah, because at this point it's 91, so they're slowly getting into that at that point.
Mm.
One thing I did find out that I didn't know, or if I did, I forgot that this one, Child's Play 3, is Brad Dourif's least favorite movie in the series.
I saw that. I actually was kind of surprised.
Me too. This movie gets a bad rap. I don't know why. I love it. I love this movie, but
Mm.
teach them. It's one of those like I guess I'm in the minority or whatever. I'm not the minority, but you know what I'm saying. I'm on an island, so to speak.
Yeah.
I'm in this small bracket of people. I'm a dying breed for certain movies, I guess. um, Now, even though Alex Vincent did not star in Child's Play 3, he was credited as Andy Barclay. He in the making like in the archive footage
Mm.
at the beginning when they're showing pictures, so he did still get credited, I guess. I never really honestly looked. I just found that as a fact.
Mm.
Um, Besides Brad Dourif, which I kind of mentioned at the beginning, the guy who played the Mr. Sullivan, who is, what did you call it? It was the CEO, right?
Mhm.
Um, he is the only other one other than Brad who appeared in 2 and 3. So it was basically a new cast again.
Oh.
Yeah, I did mention this on here about, I already mentioned that about the one of the most memorable quotes or lines in the movie, Chucky's going to be a bro. It referencing to the possession of a. Oh, okay, that's right. That's why they took it that way. I forgot about this. That it's kind of referencing the possession, like as a possession of something you own of an African American, and young Tyler is he's black. So
Mm.
to me that's reaching, but I guess if you're also a different race, maybe you take it a different way. I don't know.
Yeah.
But
Can't really
yeah,
give an opinion on that half.
exactly.
Yeah.
I did go a bit into the whole thing with the 2 kids that killed the other kid.
Mhm.
Which I forgot the age. I think I blocked that out. That's just so terrible. It's fucking 2
Yeah.
years.
I
Kid, yeah.
can't even.
You said is that
What's that?
2? He was 2
Yeah.
years old.
2 years old. I can't even imagine.
Yeah. But I did. There was a little bit more information I wanted to kind of expand on that. Because of Child's Play 3, they were connected to the crimes, and it was alleged that the 2 boys watched the movie, influencing the 2 of them. However, you find out later that they never saw the movie. But the either way, it was banned in the UK, as I said, in 2002, and the boys were arrested and imprisoned for their crime. But due to their age, they eventually were released. Though one of them was imprisoned again later after being found in possession of child pornography.
Jeez.
This has nothing to do with the movie, but it's part of it, so it's so fucked up.
Yeah.
They go into it a bit in the second release. I've talked to you about the video nasties, and that I want to do an episode about it, like my top 10 favorite video nasties. There is a second volume of it where they go into later day video nasties, and they do talk about that case in there. So that's the first I heard about it. Even though I know a lot about video nasties, I know about the original video nasties, but I didn't know how the history in the UK had evolved in the future. It's just crazy.
Yeah.
There was actually, I don't know if you knew this, but there was actually another case about another murder they tried to link to the film. A woman or a girl was kidnapped and tortured by her former friends for like several days and afterwards she was set on fire by her captors and left to die in a ditch. She was found still alive after crawling a nearby road, but later succumbed to her injuries. Suzanne was forced to listen to "Hi, I'm Chucky, wanna play?" by 150 volts of maximum volume through her headphones. I was like, what the fuck is wrong with people? This one I didn't know about, but
jeez,
that is absolutely insane. People are just fucked up and they blame it on movies, but Jesus Christ.
yeah.
I don't know what truth there is to that one. I just found that one, and because I've never heard it. I've just heard the other one. So that one could be people injecting Chucky into there to make it more credible, but I don't know if I believe the Chucky part personally. So I only have a couple more things. If there was anything you wanted to mention, we're getting towards the end, but
yeah. The one thing I wanted to say in the beginning, I figured I would wait. You said that this one is definitely like the Andy trilogy, and
yeah, basically,
yeah, I definitely felt that in the end, especially when Chucky died. Like it felt like that was kind of it.
Right.
There was no bits and pieces were hanging around. They didn't show any extras. Like he was gone at this point.
Right.
So it definitely felt like they planned on 3 and done.
Yeah.
The only thing that bugged me about all of that was afterwards the ending was just it snapped right to it and it's like, oh, we're done.
Yeah.
And the credits rolled.
Right. Yeah. He's like dead credit. Yeah.
Yeah.
I always thought that was quick too.
Yeah, it felt like some things were unanswered, but after hearing about the 9 months you said?
9 months to do everything.
Yeah,
like, film, but everything.
That's
write it,
crazy.
edit it. Yeah, insane. Yeah,
I'll let it slide a little bit.
Right.
Yeah, but yeah, and then the other thing that I thought, and it doesn't say it or anything, but I thought it would have been a cool twist if like Chucky's thinking that Tyler's his first kid and he has to tell him a secret and everything.
Mm-hmm.
I thought it would be fun if this didn't count as like a new body or anything. Like his soul still was tied to Andy. So even if he tried, Tyler couldn't be possessed. I thought that would have been a really cool way to take it, but it didn't go that way.
No, it didn't, but that's a really cool take on it.
Yeah. But yeah, that was pretty much all I had. Like, I definitely enjoyed it. It was a fun watch. I'm glad I bought it. It was only $10, so
awesome. Yeah. I'm definitely glad because I know you really like the other ones, and I had a feeling like from there you probably would. But
yeah,
it's the one in those three that always gets dumped on, so to speak. And I never understood it, but each their own again,
Yeah.
Maybe people see more because of, like you said, like certain things, like the time constraints, so things just happen so quickly and things like that, or things aren't completely I shouldn't say things aren't resolved. They're resolved. There's I don't think really any cliffhanger, so to speak.
But they just don't go into like extra details of what happened to them afterwards or what happened to the kids at school, like little things like that.
Right. Yeah, because it was basically like, all right, let's get this done.
Yeah.
Speaking of things going fast, the military academy scenes, which is like basically the main plot of the movie, take place entirely in just 2 days. I'm not saying they filmed it in 2 days, but the movie, it takes place in 2 days, pretty much.
I not even realize that. Like it felt like it was a while.
Yeah. No. And I found this interesting. This is one thing I didn't know. There is a deleted scene that during it, some television's airing of the film, Tyler is seen, like how do I put it? Like, I guess like when because I've noticed this too, even though I don't like watching movies on TV, like with commercials and stuff as it's edited. Every once in a while, or more times than not, I should say, actually, as time goes on, there's actually scenes in it that aren't in the regular movie, so it's kind of interesting sometimes to catch certain things. But anyway, there's a scene where Tyler is seen playing an Atari, which he has modified to mask the name of the system, of course, because they can't show that. But while riding on the bus to the military school, um, appropriately, he's playing a military like jet fighting game called Blue Lightning, I guess. But is later seen in like a theatrical cut, I guess, of the film. But it ended up being cut out of it, and while waiting to get his hair cut by the barber. Also, you see the video game screen later on, but because we see, in other words, we do see him playing the game, but I don't know why I figured I'd include that. It's not that interesting, but I thought it was different. I always think it's cool when there's. I think it's cool yet annoying because I don't really want to watch something on TV if I can help it, but
yeah,
find out there's extra stuff. I'm like, damn it. Let's see. What else do I have? Because we're getting up there in time. This is a longer one for us, other than our top whatever. Those go on forever.
Yeah.
Let's see. It was the lowest grossing movie in the series at 20 million. I guess that's low. I guess if in Hollywood standard. But director, veteran television director Jack Bender. The movie was released August 30th, 1991, and as I said, that's right, worldwide take. So I guess that isn't that much. Was 20 minutes in the series. Some singled it out as the end of the Plastic Maniac, so to speak. And Don Mancini, after that, they felt like they needed a break for a while anyway. Because as I know, as you know, even though you've only got to 3, there's plenty more. These are probably more my favorite ones. I really like the 4th one, Bride of Chucky, and I like all of them, but my favorites are probably still the initial 3. But despite the controversy in the ultimate failure of the movie, everyone seemed to have an inkling that Chucky would someday still return. Don said, I think even then we kind of knew that the character had been embraced by pop culture because as time went on, it kind of grew as like a cult thing. Like it a few years went by because Don would see kids on Halloween dressed up as Chucky, and he said he knew he'd always be brought back every few years to kind of reinvent it in a new kind of way. So he figured it was only a matter of time to do more Chucky. Now, I'm not saying that because that's what we're doing next. A good segue there, because I love Chucky, but we spent enough time on Chucky. We're gonna definitely do a kind of 360 for our next episode.
Yeah.
Our next episode, we are finally getting into, well, not quite next episode, but we're going to be getting into some stuff that I usually don't say on the podcast, but because we do have this kind of set in stone. Next episode is going to be one of my all-time favorite Italian movies. It was my first Italian movie, and anybody that knows me that listens, as well as Adam himself, knows that I'm a bit of a nerd for Italian movies and a bit obsessed. And those aren't even strong enough words, I don't think.
But, just a little bit.
This episode's a little bit longer than the other ones. I have a feeling that our next episode might even be a little bit longer. I don't know, but our next episode is going to be Lucio Fulci's Zombie. So that's definitely going to be a lot of fun. I've mentioned it on other podcasts. I talked about it on my brother's podcast because it was part of my top 5 favorite horror movies of all time. I talked about it on here. That's right. It was in my top 10 because I did the 6 to 10 or 10 to 6 of Zombie. So I always have more to say about it, and I'm sure I'll repeat stuff, but that should be fun. But after that, and it's only appropriate, we tried to do it as the month of February, which ironically we had this thought of before, and I never even thought about it. But today, as we're recording this, it still kind of is for you, just by a few minutes.
5 minutes.
is George Romero's birthday, so all more the appropriateness. We are initially going to do a George Romero month of February. We still are doing that, just it's gonna kind of seep into March now because we got into Chucky, but it's still happening. So we're gonna do Zombie, and then we're gonna do the Dead trilogy, and then we're gonna do. Should I say what we're gonna do then, or were we in agreement for the for Creep Show?
Oh yeah, definitely Creep Show.
Okay, awesome.
Yeah.
So that'll be the next one's coming up. So anybody that continues to listen or just hears this one, those are the next ones. So if you wanted to add anything, I'm all set with my stuff.
No, I'm excited. Zombie was my first Italian horror too, and when I watched it, it was kind of rough. So this is going to be a rewatch for me, and it's almost going to be fresh. So I'm excited.
Awesome, and I'm excited for you. I'm hoping for the best because I hope this opens a bit of a door because I'm going to want to do more Italian movies.
Oh yeah.
Even if for whatever weirdo reason, I'm joking, that you may not like it, it doesn't mean you won't like others.
Yeah.
Because every Italian movie is necessarily the same movie. They all have the same feel, and I will say that they, quote unquote, kind of like I put names on things like the Andy Barclay trilogy or whatever. Italian movies to me are almost like their own subgenre too, because nothing is like them. They try to be like other things like American movies, but at the end of the day, they're themselves. I have a huge passion for the movies, and I'm super excited for Zombie. We'll see how long that episode is. I don't know, but it will definitely be fun, and I'm definitely excited for you to rewatch it.
Yeah.
So we'll that'll be our next stuff. So if you're good, we'll call it a podcast.
Yeah. Oh, and I was gonna say if anybody listening wants to watch it before they listen to the next one, it's Zombie with Zombi. So it might not pop up right away if you search for the actual spelling, the English spelling of it.
Oh, right. Good point. There's tons of titles which I'll get into. So, because you'll be watching Zombie 2, right? That's your?
That's my copy.
There's a Blue Underground version that actually is Zombie spelled in English, so that you can find that as well. If you're, I don't know if anybody listened to us that far away, but in the UK it's called Zombie Flesh Eaters, and on and on and on. But I'll get into that too. So, so yeah, that's a good point. Definitely, if people are kind of new to it, it's a great one to start with. I that's how I started. I'm not saying everybody will get to my point, but yeah. But all right. So this has been the Horror of It All movie podcast. I'm Eric.
I'm still Adam.
Until next time with Zombie.